Got the Southwest Stakes. It's a Grade 3 run at Oaklawn. 10th race on the Saturday card, run at a mile and a 16th for the 3-year-olds. And this is $1 million purse. So I think it's we want to keep that in mind for sure because that definitely means the stakes are raising for these prep races, and most of them have been ungraded so far. So there's some significant runners in this field. Top of the list, you'd have to say Gaming. Second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile for Bob Baffert. Always want to take his get seriously, and especially when they come to Oaklawn. In the past, he's brought his best Derby horse quite often to Oaklawn. Not necessarily Gaming this year because you do have Barnes in his stable, as well as Citizen Bull, the juvenile winner, and quite a few others. But it is significant if he brings one of his 3-year-olds to Oaklawn. We definitely want to keep that in mind. Just as a couple examples, looking at Lucky, American Pharaoh, and you don't need to be any better than that. I think that's a pretty good indication. I've got some good competitors. Patch Adams certainly has been getting a lot of acclaim lately. Off of that maiden score was pretty darn impressive. Ran a 7-furlong race in 1:20, which is pretty damn good. Sandman for Mark Cassey. The coach, D. Wayne Lucas, has got a couple right next to each other, American Promise and Bon Temps. And then we've got Steve Asmussen's got a couple with Publisher and Tistastic. So it's an interesting field, and it's a little top heavy, but it should be a pretty good betting race for a lot of reasons. Taking a look at it, you look at the front runners. We always want to start with what the speed is. Now, American Promise is listed as an E, and he has been keen to get to the lead, but lately the coach has been taken aback. It seems to be a very similar scenario to what he did with Just Steel, and they're both by Justify, American Promise and Just Steel. Took the lead in his last one, sort of by default, had the rail, had everything his way, and it was in the mud, so it was a good place to be. And I did note that he was kind of begging for the wire. The Publisher was really getting to him late, and he just kind of hung on. Fractions-wise, this horse looks like he's getting better. But I don't know if it's going to be enough against some of the more polished 3-year-olds in this race. And he appears to be kind of a grinder as well. And I don't know how well that's going to set up for him here. And he's also got Speed King right next to him. Or not next to him, but will likely be very keen to the lead. You look at the Speed King's last work, it was first out of 302 at Oaklawn. So this one, I think, is pretty logical. He's been running towards the front end. Pedigree-wise, I don't think he really screams 2 turns, and I don't think Speed King is good enough, so he's likely going to be cheap speed. And if anything, it's going to keep things a little honest. But I don't like either of them. Really, American Promise, I think Speed King really hurts his chances to a degree. I think American Promise would need things to be a little more honest, maybe a little slower. So don't like either one of them in this race. Now we go to the pressers. Excuse me. And we've got the 2 banner 3-year-olds in this race, Gaming and Patch Adams. Gaming, I'll be damned if I can figure out what's up with him. The last 2 races have not been, they've been okay. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile and then the Low South Futurity. Speed favoring track in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and so I don't know that I'm going to hold too much against him. He did finish second, and it was a nice effort for sure, but the Low South Futurity, you really got to wonder about that one. Now, it may just have been a post-Breeders' Cup flattening out, but he just didn't have a whole lot in the stretch. So maybe we can draw a line through that. Maybe he didn't like the track. I've heard people say that. I don't know. I think it's, again, because Bob Baffert sends him to Oaklawn, I think that is significant, especially when you consider the purse. And he certainly doesn't want his better 3-year-olds all running against each other. So I think it is significant here. And I think Gaming is class-wise at a place where he's better than most of these here. So gaming, I think, is a logical contender in here, and he's a win candidate for sure. Patch Adams, here's an interesting thing I've been noticing with Brad Cox maidens who are moving into stakes races. Now, we all know that Brad Cox is very good moving horses to the first route. I think he's at like 28%, 3-year-olds. And, you know, it certainly he knows how to do it. I'm not questioning that. It is interesting to note that Brad Cox is 0 for Oaklawn in 25 starts. You don't see that too often. So I think maybe his better horses are at the fairgrounds. I don't know. But you can't deny the last effort was pretty impressive. I will say this, though. While I like the acceleration in the stretch, we've been seeing this with Brad Cox 3-year-olds lately. Admiral Dennis, Hot Property. A lot of them chasing last week. A lot of them just aren't following up when they're moving to a route. And you kind of got to wonder about that a little bit. Certainly that was a very impressive effort. It wasn't the greatest of maiden fields. It was okay. So you put all that together, and in some respects, Patch Adams is a bit of an underlay. I think he's, that race, you just can't deny that last race. So certainly if he can put an effort around 2 turns like that together, he's going to be very hard to beat in here. But again, the history I've seen this year, I think he's worth trying to beat. And so I certainly want to use Patch Adams. I think he's certainly a win candidate. But I'm going to try to beat him. And I've settled on Sandman. Now, you can look and say, well, it's taken him a couple, he's had a couple of clunkers in there. But go back and look at his work tab and the gaps between the works prior to those races. And you'll see significant gaps. And that always means that there's been trouble. There's been some kind of issue that's interrupted his training. However, before the last race, he had smooth sailing training wise, and he looked awful good in that optional claimer. I really liked the acceleration I saw, and this is a horse. You look at the connections, you look at the syndicate, St. Elias, West Point, DJ Stables. I mean, if they all got in on this horse, I think that says that this one is pretty special. I think he's going to have some pace to run to. Probably going to be, as he's improving, I think he'll be not necessarily at the back of the pack, probably about mid-pack. And I think he's going to have everything his way. And if he takes a step forward, I think he can win this race. And at 5-1, I love the value. I'm taking Sandman in the upset here. Now, if we want to look at the field horses, or ones you want to fill out the exotics, there's a lot of ways to go, without a doubt. Publisher is still a maiden, and I'm a little suspicious of that last effort because while it looked pretty good, it was in the mud, and it was significantly better than anything he had run before, and he'd had a race under his belt. Maybe he's progressing, maybe he's improving. That's true, but I'm going to wait one on Publisher. Can he get underneath? Sure, but I just don't think he's quite ready to take this one down. Render Judgment is a horse that I liked earlier, and he's been in the year, and he's been a bit of a disappointment, particularly over at in the Gun Runner. Was no match for Built. We saw Built came back, ran a pretty good race in the Lecomte, although it was a pretty slow number. Now he gets blinkers, and I think maybe that's going to help him because I think there's some talent here for sure. He's shown it. And I think maybe the hood will help him to a degree. No Brian Hernandez, but I'm willing to give Render Judgment a shot underneath at 15-1. Why not? He's got some, he's got some back class, and he's got some bottom to him, and I think the 2 turns is fine for him. So we'll use render judgment for the odds. Bon Top as well for the coach. This one I thought would be a candidate to go underneath in the Smarty Jones, and he did get a pretty good fourth, and he wasn't good enough. There's no doubt about that. But, look at his tab. He threw a bullet in before that race, and he's just thrown another bullet in. I think this is a horse who is getting better, and at 30 to 1, I think he offers a lot of nice value. And so throw him in underneath, bottom of the try. I don't think you could do much better than that, but at 30 to 1, why not? Monet's Magic of the later runners, I like. I liked his progression. I liked his race last time. He seems to be a horse who's getting it. And he's one that, it wouldn't surprise me a whole lot if he could take a step forward if he wins this race. But I don't think he's as good potentially as the top three here. But at 15 to 1, I think certainly he can get underneath to spice things up for the trifecta. Tistastic, it may be a little bit of a surprise that I'm throwing out, and here's why. He did have the couple of turf wins at Kentucky Downs. Why is he on turf at 2 years old? Is it Tis the Law? Tis the Law's a freshman sire. Winchell Thoroughbreds, that screams dirt, Derby Trail all the way, and yet they threw him on turf for a couple. Now, all right, fine, but moving forward, his last race, he was no match. He just wasn't good enough. And you look at his running lines, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of Magnitude. He doesn't seem to be progressing terribly much. And at 10 to 1, to me, he's, I think he's a bit of an underlay, because I think there's a couple others in here who the odds are better on, who look to have a potential to progress. And for those reasons, I'm going to just let Tistastic go. Can he get to the bottom of the try? Sure. But I don't think he's doing any better than that. It just doesn't look like it right now. He doesn't have that feel of a horse who is progressing. So to me, I'd rather take my shot with better value horses. So in sum, I like the Sandman. I think he's got the best potential to move forward for the reasons stated. And I do think you've got a couple of vulnerable favorites in here. A little vulnerable, not a lot. But I think there are reasons to try to beat them, so we're going to try to do that. Look at our wagering strategy. We're going to go with the 6 to win. Then we'll do cold exactas with 6-1, 6-7, and then we'll key box, because I think Patch Adams or Gaming can win this race without a doubt. I think those are the top three choices. Of the rest of them, I don't think anybody else has a chance to win this race. So we'll just key box the three of them. For the trifecta, we'll do the same thing. 6 with 1-7, 1-7. From my Massachusetts friends, you got that nice Boston 617 area code, easy to remember. And then we'll go, if Patch Adams and Gaming, we'll put on top with Sandman in second, and then we'll throw Render Judgment and Bon Top in for third, and then we'll just do a saver trifecta, 6 on top with 1-7 with all, because I do think there's a lot of potential horses to finish third here. So I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck as always. This looks like it's going to be a really fun race, and I think the big boys are starting to show up in these races, so it should be a really fun Derby Trail. It always is, of course, but this is going to be a really fun race. We've already got, it's Pegasus World Cup Day at Gulfstream, and we've already got the PWC Invitational. We're posting out for that, so go have a look at that. We're going to have a lot more about the Pegasus later on this week. We'll have a couple of individual stakes postings, and then we'll put it all together, and we'll have a sequence and best bets, value plays, all that good stuff. So lots more content on the way from Right at the Wire, so stay right here. If you do like content like this and you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And thanks to all of you who have recently come on board. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon. And until then, be well.